Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Chupacabra's Lair. I am your host, Larry the Chupacabra, and we're back for more April Fool's 2015 gaming-related shenanigans today with the April Fool's game mode events of War Thunder. Most notably, weird, derpy blow-up tanks that are made out of rubber and shoot vegetables, and of course, the major, more interesting piece, which is fighting in Walker Mechs that are something right out of Star Wars, but made out of the KV-2. You're probably thinking to yourself, Larry, you say there's Walker tanks, but you're not in a Walker tank right now, and, well, you're not wrong. I've never actually done a War Thunder event before, but the name of the game is you start with some free tanks, and then you gotta get a couple of kills in order to get some spawn points or earn the right to spawn a big fancy murder mech. Or some planes if your mech got KO'd almost instantaneously. And right here you can actually see one of them show up, and I actually one-shot it, which is really not a thing pretty much any tank but the Panzer G will manage to do. And there's actually a funny backstory behind the tank. So the tank that you were going to be fighting in is called the ST-1, and the backstory is in April of 1937, Armored Command of the Red Army sent the military operational requirements to Factory 184. These were the requirements for the development of an armored machine of a new type, with a maximum mass of 50 tons protected by at least 60 millimeters of armor, and the option to install different weapon types. Depending on the task of the battle, machine 107mm cannon, 122mm howitzer, 152mm howitzer could be mounted with some AA guns and all that sort of stuff. And in spite of the complexity of the task, a whole boatload of them were made and disseminated into battle for testing, and some were given to the Americans, and some were captured by the German army. And so once we die here, we'll take out this last Russian tank, or at least try to. We will actually be able to spawn as one of the new mech models. We gotta get through our preliminaries here. We gotta there it goes. The big thing in this game mode is there's really two things that'll murder you. The big nasty Walker tanks, but more often than not, just a cheap butthole of a flying plane will murder your face. So here we go on a magical adventure in a Walker tank. And so here we are, and it looks a hell of a lot like one of those Walker mechs from Star Wars, doesn't it? You know, the ones that looked like a gigantic face and they shot lasers. And wouldn't you know it, there's a cheap asshole across the way who is actually just picking at people who spawn. Never fear. I will just skip ahead a little bit until I've spawned yet again as one of the chicken walkers. And these are pretty fun, actually. The two arms have got a really high-caliber machine gun. It can actually disable and tear apart lighter tanks, disabling their cannons while your main gun reloads. And it's designed using the headpiece of a KV-2. And there behind me, you can see the American version of the tank, which just has a slight different coloration. Then the Russian one, as you'd imagine, is just green, like every other Russian-made tank in the history of ever in War Thunder. And so, you know, there is some sort of non-realistic factors at play here. Obviously, these chicken legs don't exactly have a lot of great physics about them, or else you'd be wobbling back and forth, and you'd be damn near impossible to aim. But because you're based off of a KV-2, pretty much one shot is all it takes to murder just about anything. Because you're shooting a shell the size of a small corgi at enemies. And so we're gonna try and sneak around here, three of us, and find some cute little tanks to murder. Or in this case, an enemy walker. Who's gonna hide behind a house and just be a butthole in a minute, but that's okay. We got other tanks murdering our foes there on the ground. Like this cute little Panzer L. We'll get one shot once our main cannon reloads. And really, the name of the game in this game mode was just, once you unlocked the ST-1, by killing a couple of people. The trick is to spawn as quickly as possible, because if you're the team fielding the most Walker Mechs first, you tend to win the match. It's really, once you get like 3 or 4 of them locking down a spawn point, that's about it. And then, of course, hiding behind stuff and murdering people. It's about the only thing that's going to kill you, again, is another Walker Mech or a plane. And then pretty much nothing else is really going to kill you. In fact, your legs, while they seem vulnerable, which they really are, you can actually disable the transmission pretty easily because it's just the pelvis of the tank. The game doesn't really seem to care. It pretty much just ignores that information. We'll shoot a couple of little tanks here, another Panzer L. And somewhere around here, there's going to be an American Sherman tank, if I remember correctly. They're kind of saucy buggers. One of the goofiest things I actually found in this was these tanks can walk through the water. You'll see that a little bit later. They're so tall that they don't actually give a single crap about water physics whatsoever. And in fact, if you try to bomb a Walker Mech while they are in the water, half of the time, even if the bomb hits them square on the noggin, it doesn't seem to do anything. And I kind of got pissed about that, because later down the road when I was playing with a couple of friends of mine, they murdered me in one of my tanks, cheaply camping the spawn, and I wanted to kill them with a plane, and that prevented sweet, saucy vengeance, which I so desperately wish. Another thing is, it doesn't really matter, from what I've found, in special game events in War Thunder, what level your tanks are when you go into it. It just gives you the appropriate level tanks, no matter what faction you are. So it doesn't matter if you have Tier 4 in Germany, like I do, you will be tiered down to 1 and 2 in select tanks, like the L and the G. And funny enough, despite the fact that there's a lot of Germans playing in this game mode right now, not a lot of them figure out that you can just annihilate these walkers with the Panzer G. It's convenient for me. I'm actually going to try and take this guy out. He's in an American M35, which is what they named their tank. At least what Gaijin named the American tank. And they're all pretty much the same thing. The main difference being that the Russian tanks and the American tanks have got more solid shots, and the alternate ammunition type for the German Walker is actually a high explosive shell, which I disabled. Because in a game mode like this, I don't think high explosive is going to be useful at all. And after that, you pretty much just kind of peek out here and there, shoot some people, and everything's a one-shot. And you try not to run out of ammunition, because it can be a little buggy switching between ammunition types. And then I'll get annihilated by a plane here in a minute, so we'll just switch to playing the American version. And this I really remember, this was very nostalgic for me, this paint job that you get by default is the camouflage for the American tank, because something about this was really Mech Warrior to me, you know, like the Mad Cat in Mech Warrior, although Mech Warrior had very distinctive arms, whereas these just have the 2 side arms controlled by 2 gentlemen in the main cabin that just shoot a high caliber machine gun. You can also shoot planes out of the air, I should mention. However, for whatever reason, maybe I had my bindings wrong, it also shoots your main cannon when you shoot your machine guns, so there's no way to do that without wasting ammo, and switching between ammo types can be a bit buggy, so you best not wasting your time at it. Just go murder people. That's the specialty. You can always be, like, quick on the scope, because these things will all insta-murder each other. You know, these things can spawn within, like, 3 or 4 minutes of the game. Pretty much every time I'd go into one of these matches, I'd get 2 kills, then go suicide myself, and spawn as a Walker Mech, because the sooner you get in, the more likely that you are to get enough kills where if you do die, you'll be able to spawn as a mech immediately. The cost of them doubles. And for the most part, you're almost never going to be able to spawn twice as a mech in the speed at which these game modes were fighting. And we'll just sneak around and get this guy as he crests the corner. Because we're saucy and stealthy, even though we're the size of a house. Oh, there it is. Got murdered by another plane. Damn flying bastards. Saucy. But good news. Played as Russia around for the first time. Never played in a KV-1 before. Really sturdy tanks, those KV-1s. Kind of a pain in the butt to deal with, and I'm actually tempted, after playing this game mode, to level up and see how similar or dissimilar playing the KV-2 is to this thing. Now, obviously this thing, it doesn't really matter where you hit one of the enemy tanks, and from what I've experienced fighting KV-2s, it seems not too dissimilar from just having a KV-2 at all. I'm tempted to go back and level up a KV-2 and fight with that. Really, right there I shot a tank at their enemy spawn, sheer across the map and across the river, and just one-shot him by just clipping the front of him, which I don't think is usually a thing that happens. Yeah. And after that, it's really just making sure you don't get snuck up on by an enemy walker. We're gonna go for an adventure in the sea. Because, there's one thing I've always wanted to do. It's to go on a magical seafaring adventure as, Captain, I don't remember what he was, in the 30,000 leagues under the sea with the Nautilus, that, spicy sea ship that was made by this, like, the same film director that did, like, the Robinson Crusoe movie. And, go on weird adventures murdering giant squids and mythical creatures, and then selling their organs to wealthy Chinese businessmen years later as collectible souvenirs. Because, you know, you can still do that with animals of the ocean, kind of harder to do with actual elephants. I never really pursued a career as a safari game hunter. Yeah, as you can see, completely ridiculous. You can walk in the water. You can actually walk up on top of certain buildings, too, and play King of the Hill. Which is a nice way of saying if there's anyone else alive who can shoot you, you're probably going to be instantly dead upon cresting the horizon. Because everyone's going to be able to see you from anywhere in the map. One of the weird things is you actually get hung up on the undersides of these bridges, so it gets a little bit awkward. You know, whatever. So we're gonna go roll up to the enemy spawn, do some more murdering. I'm kind of arcing it a little bit high, because this is basically plays like arcade mode, you know, assisted aiming. Which you kind of need when you're playing with tanks that you may or may not have ever played with before, like, you know, Tier 2 KV-2. And I don't remember if I ever X-rayed in any of these recordings, but if you X-ray this tank, it looks pretty straightforward. There's a transmission in the pelvis of the tank. Your engine is sitting in your abdomen back there like a spider's behind. And then, like, the whole frame of this thing is just coated in shells. So, if you sneeze, and your sneeze is just a little bit too warm, you're probably going to ignite everything in the cabin and kill everyone. That's why it's a one-hit wonder, regardless of what you do. Especially because it's kind of hard to swap between ammo, and even when I would remove my other ammo loads and increase the primary ammo load, it always just kind of gave me that same default ammo load. So you'd run out pretty quickly if you were trying to do things like shoot planes out of the air, like I'm doing here. Which was kind of stupid. I think, like, minutes from now, I would actually get, like, KO'd by a piddly little tank who'd slowly shoot me to death while I was trying to machine gun off his turret. So there's that. Alright, last we're gonna switch over here to this alternate game mode where we fight as little dinky rubber tanks that are called the SPS-255, and during World War II, these cute little dinky pieces of shit would have been used to fool the enemy. You know, at the time, the notion of fake prop weapons was, I guess, new, or at least not common enough where they'd question it. And when we invaded D-Day happened and we invaded the beaches of Normandy, we basically managed to, with the advent of inflatable tanks and inflatable planes and fake landing craft at the different areas, we were able to convince Hitler and his higher-ups that we were actually going to invade a port directly across the English Channel from Britain. And then we, you know, snuck over and invaded Normandy, and Hitler didn't really believe that that was our primary invasion force until much later, so he would never okay the landing or the sending of Panzer tanks until we already had a foothold. So, goes to show you that these were very effective weapons. If you were to X-ray these tanks, which you'll be able to see in a moment when I start getting some piercing carrot shots off, which I was kind of derpy at the start here, because I believe that you could just shoot the carrots through, like, objects as if they were a regular armor-piercing round. You can see there that these just kind of look like wooden frames surrounded by rubber, and they are powered by 4 men on bicycles, which is actually pretty entertaining. And they shoot carrots, which are the armor-piercing rounds, which really just means that they're more aerodynamic. And then you can shoot potatoes, and potatoes just chunk your armor. You can 4-shot somebody with potatoes. And we'll go over here to a round where we actually won, and you pretty much just lob your potatoes right off the bat. I actually managed to get quite a few random winging hits off on people hiding inside the town by just firing potatoes and carrots wildly for no reason. And here you can actually see the frame. I'm gonna, like, back up and take a pause of that and take a look at the frame. It's kind of funny to look at. 4 grown men in bicycles powering a practice tank. I didn't really enjoy this game mode as much. It gets on your nerves pretty quickly. These tanks obviously aren't versatile, but the little dinky cannon that you have on the front that wobbles around like a half-flaccid dick is kind of hilarious when it flops into things and when you run into people and you dock with them. Make sure to do a docking joke if this game mode is still around for the next week and you want to play it. It's a whole lot of fun, and it gets pretty goofy pretty fast. For the most part, you know, hit your carrots, hit your potatoes. They're just harder to arc if you're, you know, it takes you some time to range find like me. And go to town. You've got 100 of each, so by all means, do the thing. They're just like an air-powered cannon. You ever see the pumpkin chunkers? They do the same thing. They use catapults and cannons to do the stuff with the things. I'm actually gonna... Yep, got him with potato. That glanced off the back of him. Oh, there goes one right in front of us. Take him right out. They make little funny, like, bouncing noises, like they're actually being fired out of an air cannon. Legend did a good job with this. It's goofy, and it gets kind of old fast, but I got a kick out of it. And these matches go extremely fast. You only get to spawn once with your derpy SPS tank. And, you know, I could definitely see, even though I don't think that's how it happened, I think they actually just practiced in actual tanks with just, blanks or carefully with live ammunition in tanks. I could totally see a bunch of people during World War II, practicing in one of these janky rubber automatons that, despite, how light they seem, you can't push out of your way. So, go figure. Yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this little presentation of the April Fool's Day game modes for War Thunder for 2015. I'm going to be checking out a few other game modes attached to games that I either can just download right now and play, or are, you know, a single download as opposed to having to unlock it much further down the road in a game like Path of Exile. In Path of Exile, there's this ability where when you crit with your other abilities, it spawns a crap ton of cats. Cats do nothing, they just are hilarious. So, until next time, I've been your host, Larry the Chupacabra. If you enjoyed this little piece on War Thunder, please do me a favor, like and subscribe. It helps me out a whole bunch, makes it easier for me to make more of these videos. And I'll catch you next time. And if there's anything you want to see in particular, if there's a game mode that's gonna April Fools that you know is going to be around for a while that I might not otherwise check out, drop me a line in the comments or send me an email in my About section, and I'll check it out. So until later, have a good one, everybody, and toodaloo!